You know what makes me lose sleep at night? Watching an entire generation of people hand over their life savings for a down payment on a house they've convinced themselves is an investment, when in reality, for most of them, it's the single biggest financial mistake they will ever make. And the worst part? Nobody around them is going to tell them the truth. Their parents are cheering. Their realtor is smiling. Their bank is thrilled. Everyone in the room benefits from this decision except the person making it. The entire system is set up to congratulate you for doing something that could quietly set your financial life back by a decade. My name is Astrid, and I have spent years studying what actually builds generational wealth, not what sounds good at a dinner party, not what makes your parents proud, not what your coworker brags about at the office. What actually, mathematically, over time, builds the kind of financial independence that gives you real options in life. And I promise you, the answer is not what you've been told. If you're someone who wants to understand the real math behind homeownership before you make the most expensive decision of your life, hit subscribe and stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you might genuinely change the trajectory of your finances. I want you to meet Mason. Mason is 29. He works in marketing, makes $68,000 a year, and by every external measure, he is doing everything right. He drives a used car he paid off 2 years ago. He doesn't go on lavish vacations. He packs lunch 3 days a week. For 4 years, Mason has been doing the responsible thing, the thing every financial article, every parent, every well-meaning older coworker told him to do. He has been saving for a down payment. Picture him on a Saturday morning, spreadsheet open on his laptop, coffee going cold next to him, running the numbers for the 14th time. $38,000 saved. He checks Zillow. He calls a realtor. He gets pre-approved. And in November of last year, Mason closes on a $340,000 townhouse in a suburb 40 minutes from his office. 3 bedrooms. Small yard. Good school district. Not that he needs that yet, but everyone said it matters for resale. The day he signs the papers, his mom cries. His dad shakes his hand for longer than usual. His friends throw him a housewarming party. Someone brings a cutting board with his address engraved on it. He takes a photo in front of the door with his keys and posts it. 247 likes. Mason has never felt more like an adult in his life. And over the next 18 months, Mason is going to learn some things that nobody told him at that closing table. Things that are going to cost him financially, psychologically, and in terms of the wealth he could have been building while everyone was congratulating him for doing everything right. We live in a culture that treats homeownership like a rite of passage, a milestone, a mark of adulthood and responsibility. If you rent, you're throwing money away. If you own, you're building equity, putting down roots, being smart with your money. That's the story. It's clean. It's comforting. It's been sold to us since we were old enough to understand what a mortgage is. And look, I'm not here to tell you buying a home is always a bad idea. It isn't. For a very specific set of circumstances, at the right time, with the right financial foundation underneath you, buying a home can be a genuinely powerful wealth-building move. But there is a massive, critical difference between buying real estate strategically and buying a home emotionally because society told you it was time. One of those decisions builds wealth. The other one quietly drains it for years while you tell yourself you're being responsible. The problem is that almost nobody in your life is equipped or incentivized to help you tell the difference. 6 weeks after closing, Mason's water heater dies. He's in the shower at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday when the water goes from warm to ice cold in about 4 seconds. He gets out. He Googles it. He calls a plumber. The diagnosis comes back that afternoon. The water heater is original to the house, 14 years old, and needs to be fully replaced. Not repaired. Replaced. $1,400. Mason stands in his kitchen and stares at his banking app. He has $2,200 left in savings. That $38,000 didn't disappear on a vacation or a car or something reckless. It went to the down payment. It went to closing costs, $7,800 in fees that his realtor mentioned once, quickly, in a phone call 3 weeks before closing. It went to the movers, to the new appliances the seller didn't leave, to the things he needed to make the place livable. He pays the $1,400. He now has $800 in savings. And here's the thing about that $800. Mason still has $4,200 in credit card debt from his mid-20s that he never quite finished paying off because he was, saving for the down payment. That debt is sitting there at 21.99% annual interest, compounding quietly. Every single month. He pays the plumber. He doesn't touch the credit card debt because the minimum payment is manageable. He tells himself he'll rebuild his savings next month. 3 months later, the inspection report he half remembered from closing day mentioned something about the roof showing signs of aging and warranting monitoring. He finds the report in his email while looking for something else. He calls a roofer for a quote. $8,500 to $11,000 depending on materials. Mason sits down at his kitchen table, the one he bought on a payment plan from a furniture store at 0% interest for 18 months, and opens his spreadsheet again. This is not the spreadsheet from before. This one doesn't have a savings goal at the top. This one just has a column of numbers going in the wrong direction. Now let me give you the statistics that explain why Mason's story is not unusual. It's almost universal. The average American homeowner spends between 1% and 4% of their home's total value every single year just on maintenance and repairs. Not mortgage payments. Not property taxes. Just keeping the thing from falling apart. On a $340,000 home, which is right where Mason is, that's between $3,400 and $13,600 per year, every year, before he's paid $1 of principal, before property taxes, before homeowner's insurance, before the $280 a month HOA fee he knew about but somehow underweight in his mental math. These are costs that renters simply do not have. Mason's landlord had them before he closed. That is, in fact, the entire business model of being a landlord. You trade a monthly payment for freedom from exactly the kind of phone call Mason is now getting from plumbers and roofers and the HVAC company that left a door hanger saying his system is due for service. Now let's talk about the mortgage itself, because this is where it gets truly uncomfortable. In the early years of a 30-year fixed mortgage, the overwhelming majority of every payment you make goes directly to interest, not principal, not equity. Just interest. Money that goes to the bank and never comes back. In year one of Mason's mortgage at current rates, roughly 80 cents of every dollar he pays goes straight to the lender. The equity he's building is almost embarrassingly small relative to the size of the check he writes every month. He feels like a homeowner. He feels like he's building something. But the math in those early years looks a lot more like renting, except he's also responsible for the water heater. And here is the opportunity cost question that keeps me up at night. The S&P 500, represented by a simple low-cost index fund, has returned approximately 7% annually after inflation over the long run. Real estate, when you account for the full cost of ownership, maintenance, taxes, insurance, transaction costs on both the buy and sell side, has historically appreciated at roughly 1% annually after inflation. That 6 percentage point difference, compounded over the 20 to 30 years most people hold a home, is not a rounding error. It is a life-changing amount of money. But nobody throws Mason a housewarming party for opening a brokerage account. Nobody asks to see photos of his index fund at Thanksgiving. There is no cutting board with his portfolio balance engraved on it. The social reward structure of our culture is completely misaligned with the mathematical reality of wealth building. And that misalignment is costing people like Mason an enormous amount, silently, over decades. Here's where Mason's story takes the turn that changes everything. 14 months after closing, Mason gets a job offer. It's a significant step up, $22,000 more per year, better title, work he's genuinely excited about. The catch, it's in a different city, 4 hours away. He goes home that night, sits at the kitchen table, the one he's almost done paying off, and does the math. To sell his townhouse after only 14 months, he'd pay a realtor commission of approximately 5 to 6% of the sale price. That's roughly $18,000 to $20,000 gone immediately. Then closing costs on the seller side. Then the fact that his home, in a flat market, has barely appreciated since he bought it, maybe $8,000 to $12,000 if he's lucky. The net result: Mason would walk away from a home he's paid $34,000 in mortgage payments on with essentially nothing. Possibly less than nothing after transaction costs. He turns down the job. He sits with that decision for 3 days before he tells the other company no. He tells himself it just wasn't the right time. That the house is an investment. That things will appreciate. That he made the responsible choice. But somewhere in the back of his mind, in a place he doesn't like to look too directly, he knows what actually happened. He didn't choose the house over the job. The house chose for him. Because he had no liquidity, no flexibility, and no exit that didn't cost him more than he could afford to lose. This is the part of the homeownership story nobody tells you. It's not just about what the house costs to own month to month. It's about what the house costs you in terms of the decisions you can no longer make freely. Liquidity isn't just a finance term. It's a measure of your options. And Mason, at 30 years old, at a moment when he should have maximum flexibility to follow opportunity wherever it leads, has traded most of his options for a mortgage and a lawn he mows on Saturdays. Now here's the realization that reframes everything. I am not saying buying a home is always a mistake. I am saying the order in which most people do it is completely backwards, and that broken sequence is quietly destroying their long-term wealth while everyone around them cheers. The people who actually build wealth through real estate, the ones who end up with properties that genuinely appreciate, that generate income, that create options instead of constraining them, almost never bought their first home because it was time. They didn't buy because their parents thought they should. They didn't buy because renting felt like wasting money. They bought because they had done the real math in their specific market. Their financial foundation was strong enough to absorb the true costs of ownership without breaking a sweat, and buying made more mathematical sense than renting at that specific moment in time. And critically, they did not sacrifice every other financial priority to get there. Think about what the typical first-time buyer actually does. Like Mason did. Years of saving for a down payment, which means years of not building an emergency fund, years of not aggressively paying down high-interest debt, years of not maxing out a Roth IRA or capturing employer matching contributions. Every available dollar funneled into a savings account earning 4% while credit card debt at 22% sits on the balance sheet. Then finally the purchase, and immediately zero liquidity. No cushion. Nothing. Then the water heater. Then the roof. Then the job offer he can't take. This is not Mason being irresponsible. Mason did everything he was told to do, in the exact order he was told to do it. That is the trap. The advice itself was wrong. So here is the actual sequence. The one that would have changed Mason's story entirely. And I want you to notice how many of these steps have nothing to do with real estate at all. First, emergency fund. Before you save $1 toward a down payment, you need a minimum of 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account. Not because emergencies are possible. Because when you own property, emergencies are certain. Mason knew his water heater was 14 years old. He didn't know when it would fail. That's exactly what an emergency fund exists for. Without it, every unexpected cost becomes a debt event. And debt on top of a mortgage is how people lose houses. Picture a different Mason. Same house, same closing date. But he comes in with $18,000 in a high-yield savings account sitting untouched behind his down payment. The plumber calls. The water heater needs replacing. Mason opens his banking app, transfers $1,400, and goes back to work. Problem solved in 4 minutes. No stress. No spiral. No credit card. That is what a financial foundation actually feels like from the inside. Second, eliminate all high-interest debt before you buy. Every dollar of credit card debt you carry into a home purchase is working against you at 22% annually. That quiet $4,200 sitting on Mason's balance sheet while he saved his down payment cost him money every single month for 4 years. No home appreciation in any reasonable market is going to outpace that drag over time. Pay it off completely. All of it. Before you even begin seriously saving for a down payment. Third, employer match. If your employer matches retirement contributions, capture every single dollar of that match before you redirect money toward a house. That match is a guaranteed 50% to 100% immediate return on your investment. There is no real estate transaction anywhere on earth that guarantees that math. Not one. Fourth, IRA contributions, at least partially maximized. The tax-advantaged compounding you give up during the years you're laser-focused on a down payment is not an abstract number. It is real money that would have been growing, tax-sheltered, quietly building in the background while you were saving toward a purchase. Do not sacrifice it entirely. Even partial contributions during those years matter enormously over a 30-year horizon. Fifth, now you save for the down payment. And when you run the math on whether to buy or rent in your specific market, you include every true cost. Maintenance at 1 to 4% annually. Property taxes. Insurance. Transaction costs on both the buy side and the eventual sell side. The opportunity cost of the capital you're pulling out of the market to sit in a house. You run the honest numbers, not the emotional ones. You use a rent versus buy calculator, and you trust the output even when it tells you something you didn't want to hear. And if buying doesn't win that calculation in your market right now, you rent. Without apology. Without guilt. Without listening to anyone tell you you're throwing money away. Because that money, invested consistently in low-cost index funds while you rent, will very often produce better long-term wealth outcomes than the home purchase would have. Renting while investing is not failing. It is, in many markets and many moments, the mathematically superior choice. The culture just hasn't caught up to the math yet. Now picture the version of Mason who does this in the right order. Same salary. Same discipline. Same desire to own a home eventually. But he follows the sequence. He pays off the credit card debt first, takes him 14 months. He builds his emergency fund. He captures every dollar of his employer match. He starts contributing to his Roth IRA. And then, only then, he begins saving for a down payment with a clear-eyed understanding of the real costs of ownership in his specific market. By the time he buys, he's 32 instead of 29. His emergency fund is fully intact. His retirement accounts have been compounding for 3 years. He has zero consumer debt. He comes to the closing table from a position of genuine financial strength, not financial desperation dressed up as responsibility. When the water heater fails, and it will, it is an inconvenience, not a crisis. He opens the app, moves the money, schedules the plumber, and has dinner. When the job offer comes from the other city, the $22,000 raise, the better title, the work he's excited about, he sits down at the kitchen table and actually runs the numbers. Maybe the math says to stay. Maybe it says to sell and go. But it is a choice, made from a position of strength and liquidity. Not a constraint born from having spent every dollar he had to get into a situation he can't afford to exit. That is the entire difference between the two versions of Mason's story. Not intelligence. Not ambition. Not discipline. The sequence. The financial foundation that makes a home purchase an enhancement to your life instead of a quiet trap disguised as a milestone. Your future self doesn't need a housewarming party. Your future self doesn't need 247 likes on a photo in front of a door. Your future self needs options. The freedom to take the job, to move to the city, to weather the emergency without going into debt, to make decisions based on what you actually want, not based on what you can afford to lose. The house can be part of the plan. It genuinely can. But it needs to come after the foundation, not before it. Not because you're not emotionally ready. Because you're not financially ready. And when the water heater breaks on a Tuesday in February and the roofer is leaving voicemails and the job offer is sitting in your inbox waiting for an answer by Friday, financial readiness is the only kind that actually matters. Don't be the first version of Mason. Be the second one. And that's it for today. If Mason's story hit a little too close to home, no pun intended, drop a comment below and tell me where you are in the process. Are you saving for a down payment right now? Already in the house and feeling some of what Mason felt? I read every single comment and I genuinely want to know where you're at. If this video gave you something real to think about, share it with one person in your life who is about to make this decision. Not to talk them out of buying a house, but to make sure they're doing it in the right order. That share might save them more money than they realize. And if you're new here, welcome. This channel is called Finanza, and what we do here is cut through the noise. No hot stock tips. No get-rich-quick nonsense. Just the honest, unsexy, mathematically sound information that actually moves the needle on your financial life over time. The stuff they don't teach in school and most people figure out about a decade too late. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because next week we're going deep on the real estate strategy that actually builds generational wealth, not the version your realtor wants to sell you, but the one that actually works when you run the real numbers. It is going to completely change how you think about property as a wealth-building tool. I'm Astrid. I'll see you in the next Finanza. Take care of your money because nobody else is going to do it for you.